What is up, you guys? Diggerdan here, coming at you with another video. Today, I am reviewing God, Emperor of Dune, written by Frank Herbert. So without further ado, let's dig into it. Now, if you don't know, God, Emperor of Dune is book number 4 out of the original 6 in the Dune Saga that Frank Herbert wrote. Now, there are more Dune books outside in the Dune mythos written by his son, Brian, or at least co-authored by Brian. There's a lot of debate as to whether Brian actually wrote the books or the co-author did all the work, and really Brian is co-authored just so you can have Herbert on the cover for the new books. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about those. I'm here to talk about God Emperor. And today, I just want to preface this is I'm going to have this as a spoiler-free review. This is my first full spoiler-free review. Because I have a hard time a lot of times talking about a book and not digging into the details. I feel like it's sometimes hard to describe my thoughts and really encapsulate everything without going into spoilers. But this time, I figured I would try to give a go at it because I want to have some of my stuff be accessible to people who are kind of maybe thinking about dabbling in the books without actually reading it. And like, oh, okay, it's a spoiler review. I can't watch that because I haven't read it. And I don't want to be spoiled. So I respect that. Also, I just need to be better about being able to articulate my thoughts while not going into spoilers. I think that's a handy, neat tool to have or a skill to have. But also, just selfishly and just to be completely candid, I read this book almost 2 months ago, like a month and a half. But my life has just been crazy with a newborn, so it's like I haven't really had time to sit down and do a review. But I still want to talk about the book and talk about how disappointed I was, unfortunately. So yeah, if I do talk into spoilers, I will let you know. I'll flash it on the screen. But for the most part, this is going to be a spoiler-free review. With that out of the way, like I said, book number 4. If you watched my previous reviews on the Dune books, then you know that Children of Dune, book 3, is my favorite out of the 3. In my opinion, they just got better and better. So I was really excited to get into God Emperor, again, to make my own opinions, because I'm the type of person where even if people are like, oh, you really shouldn't read past book 3, all the sequels kind of suck, I hear that across the internet a lot regarding the Dune books. And I'm still the type of person where I want to make my own opinions, especially when I enjoyed the first 3 books so much. I'm like, okay, maybe I'll still connect with the sequels. I did not connect with God Emperor of Dune. And yeah, I was very disappointed. So like I said, it was high on Children of Dune. I forget exactly what I rated Children of Dune. So yeah, Children of Dune I rated as a 9.28, which is very, very high. That's 93% out of 100 if you round up that 200ths or 2/10, whatever. Whereas God Emperor of Dune, I'm just going to straight up and say, out of 10, I rated it God Emperor as a 4.4, which is not good. That's not a passing score. Because the way I rate stuff, if it's a 5, that's like dead neutral. So anything over a 5 is something I enjoy, and then anything under a 5 is something I actively dislike and would recommend burying. Hence, dig it or bury it. So I don't dig it. I dig the first 3 books. I bury this book. Now, why? So let's go into some details. So for emotional impact, I guess I should explain, if you haven't watched my reviews, to get my score, there's 5 categories I rate out of 10, and then I take an average of those scores to get my overall score. So the first category I like to rate is emotional impact, and I rated emotional impact as a 3.2. Now, if you don't know, the book takes place a few thousand years after the events of book 3. So yeah, I don't want to do spoilers, but something I really hate in books and just in media in general, storytelling, is massive time jumps. Now, sometimes they can be played off really cool, really well, but this one, it didn't work for me. I just felt, because I was so connected, I feel like, with the original trilogy, and everything happened pretty concisely. Like, yeah, there was time jumps between book 1 and 2, and book from 2 to 3, but the time jumps were like less than 20 years. Where this one, it jumps to, like I said, 2,500 years or 3,500 years. I forget exactly. So massive time jumps immediately takes me out of it. It's like, okay, well, it's a whole new series in my mind at that point, even though some of the characters are still floating about, or at least sort of the same characters. I don't know. Again, I'm trying to stay away from spoilers. So immediately I felt disconnected from this book. So I was trying to dive into it almost as if it was a new series, with the history of the original series, if that makes sense. So it was kind of a weird place in my head. And then as I was trying to figure it out, as the world building was being built out, because obviously over thousands of years, climates can change vastly and geography can change vastly. So there was a lot of diving into that for the world of Arrakis, which, as you know, or you probably most likely know, it's a desert planet, but it's slowly becoming not so much of a desert planet. It's becoming a green planet, which is kind of a thing of a debate from the original trilogy. That was kind of a big plot mover for a lot of the actions that the characters made. And now we're at a point, again, many thousands of years later, where the planet's not so much desert. There's patches of green. There's even more green than there is desert now. And so there's a little bit of fallout between communities about that, like the changes in religion about that, and all these things. So there are some hints of cool elements, but I was pulled out of it because of that big time jump. And I was trying to get into it, and I was trying to be very patient. But this book is kind of dense. And the main character, Leto, who is the God Emperor, he talks in riddles. And I didn't understand what he was trying to say half the time. Or if he did, then it was like misdirection and like all these things. So yeah, emotional impact was not good. I was pulled out of the book. It was kind of a bore to get through, if I'm being honest. And the only reason I didn't DNF this book and put it down partially is because I already committed to the entire series. I already bought the other, like the 3 sequels. So part of it was money, part of it was guilt because of that. But also I was listening to the audiobook, so it was a little easier to just kind of power through it because I could just listen to the narrator read it. So yeah, so I did finish the book, but I was very, very close a few times to DNF it. So anyway, emotional impact 3.2. Next is characters at a 4.9. This is almost the highest rated thing, but not great. It's still something I didn't like. And a lot of this is because some of the characters that still remain from the original trilogy, like Leto and Duncan Idaho, they're vastly different people. Like Duncan, it's like its argument is like, is it really still him? Just because of, again, trying not to spoil anything, just because of the state that he is in and how he comes about in the story, and how it is that he has survived through the last few thousand years. So he's a completely different person, but he's probably my favorite person. I would say he's like the reader insert where he almost he has to be explained things, if that makes sense, like the state of the world and how things have come to be, because a lot of his memories are still from the original trilogy, just like it is for myself. So I see Duncan as the reader insert, which is good. But then again, you have Leto II, who is the God Emperor. And again, I don't want to spoil anything, but he's not 100% human anymore. And he's just kind of a bore, in my opinion. I think it could have been really cool. I think the way Book 3 ended, it left a lot to the imagination. And I think my imagination I had more fun in my imagination about what could happen than what I was actually given with Leto. He just became like this all-knowing being. But it's like kind of pretentious and like, I don't know, like he was talking in double speak, like talking in riddles. It's like you don't really know what he's getting at. So yeah, and then since there's a big time jump, there's many different generations of Atreides and different Iraqian people in between Book 3 and God Emperor of Dune. So there's a lot of new characters that you're learning about too. Some of the new characters, again, didn't really care about. I was just trying to understand what was going on. But others I did care about. Like, I forget his name, but kind of Leto's right-hand man, who is in Atreides, is an older gentleman. I forget his name, but he was probably my favorite character after, not Leto, after Duncan. So, yeah, characters were better than I was expecting by the end of the book, but yeah, 4.9, so still losing score. Next, I like to rate is plot. Plot is easily the worst thing for this book, in my opinion, and I rated that as a solid 3 out of 10. Again, there's some things that kind of made sense. That's why it's not like 0 or 1. But by the end of the book, it was just like, this is stupid. Like, again, not trying to spoil anything, but the climax of the book, the event that happens on the bridge in the last couple of chapters, I was actually happy when that happened. I'm like, yeah, you deserve this, Leto. Like, you bored me to death, and this is what you get. But again, it kind of made me ask more questions just because of the metamorphosis he was going through, because again, he's not 100% human. And then the metamorphosis as it continues to happen kind of makes it way more open-ended again for book 5. See how that could impact, well, not only Arrakis, but the entire universe or the entire galaxy. It would be really interesting. But really, I feel like there wasn't much of a plot. Like, from point A at the beginning, and it was almost like really a prologue. It kind of set up the tone of the book, which kind of seemed to be more like boring, really. And then it's like a bunch of nothing happens, and then kind of fast forward to the event at the end. And it's like, okay. So in between, it was just a whole lot of nothing, of like Leto basically philosophizing and just boring me to death, if I'm being honest. So I didn't really feel like there's much of a plot. So next is dialogue and prose. And this, ironically, is the highest rated thing, as a 5.9. Which is now that I'm saying it, is maybe higher than it should be, just because I was bored to death. But Frank Herbert has, like, he's got nice prose. Like, the dialogue itself isn't horrendous if I understood what was going on. But yeah, 5.9 is too high. This should be lower. Now that I'm saying that. But again, I wrote these ratings down a month and a half, 2 months ago when I actually finished the book. So, but yeah, like when it was not focused on Leto and when it was like on Duncan to other characters, it was actually interesting. Like the character moments were good. But I think maybe some of this too is that the prose from the first 3 books isn't honestly all that dissimilar from this book. So I think it was maybe kind of a lot of that, where it's like, okay, well, I rated it this highly for the other 3 books. I can't really knock it too much. Otherwise, I'd have to lower the ratings for the other 3 books. But I enjoyed it for the other 3 books. But for this one, it didn't work as much just because Leto is like philosophizing and just trauma dumping and all. I don't know. So, didn't love dialogue and prose. But apparently I rated it as 5.9. So take that with what you will. And then world building, that's the last category I like to rate. I rated this as a solid 5. In a lot of this, honestly, probably could be lower. But the reason it is at a 5, just dead neutral, is because it's building off of what we had from the original 3 books, but it's also like resetting a lot of things we know. Because like I said, with that big time jump, there's a lot of climate change things, a lot of ecological things that happened, a lot of societal differences. So it was building on top of it, but it was also rebuilding what was there. But I kind of liked what was there already, and I didn't really like where it was going into. So that's why it's not higher or lower than a 5. It's just kind of there. Even though that was kind of a big aspect of the plot. So yeah, I know kind of my thoughts are all over the place. Again, normally my reviews are longer, but I can't really talk details because I'm doing spoiler free. So yeah, I don't know. Disappointed. I will read Heretics. Actually, as of me sitting here recording this video, I actually finished Heretics last night, and I did enjoy Heretics a little more than God Emperor, which actually makes me excited for Chapter House of Dune, but we'll see. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, what do you guys think of God Emperor Dune? Have you guys even read it? Like, because I've heard so many mixed things on it. Have you guys read this, the 3 sequels in general? What do you think of them? What's your rating of the 6 books, or even just the 3 sequels, I guess? Yeah, because aside from just overall, they're not as good as the originals. Like, that's really kind of the consensus I've had, or I've read or I've seen. So, yeah. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you guys. And if you enjoyed this video, please hit like down below. If you guys want to see more from me, Diggerdan, please hit that subscribe button, as well as that bell notification icon, so you guys know when I upload each and every single time. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Thanks for watching. Bye.